Let's go. What's up, everybody? It's Sam Stats, and I'm here with Kaleo. I learned that's how you pronounce his name. Kaleo, what's going on, man? How you doing?
I'm doing well. I mean, consider all things considered, I'm doing all right. How about yourself?
I'm doing okay, but I did tweet yesterday. If anybody finds my money, they should DM me. So I'll make that public claim. Where is my money gone, Kaleo? Where is it gone?
Oh, it's it's progressively disappearing by the minute that we're on here. So that's a
I
great
know.
question.
Well, at least we get 20 minutes of distraction here. All right, I got.
Mhm.
Let's just start with AceTrader 100. So you got out to first place, and then money go bye bye. What
I'd
happened?
still
Give us the
basically
play
be
by play.
there.
Yeah.
So I
And
got the first place with the realized P&L, right? And a big part of what happened with that was I was expecting a bounce off of the whatever the lows were, I think from last April. And Bitcoin bounced cleanly right off of that. And that's right about the time when the funding for the competition came live. So I just aped into a long and I held it. And at a certain point, I was like, okay, I don't expect it to go beneath X at this point. So, I like there's no cross margin enabled on the platform that I could find. So the only way to be able to get access to more margin was to be able to sell the position and then re-long. So,
yeah,
I did that multiple times over. And at a certain point, I was like, dude, realistically, I don't need to do a single thing. And I'm basically guaranteed in the top 8. Nobody's getting, there aren't 8 people that are going to outperform a 3x in the matter of a week. It's just, I've been done a few competitions recently, knew that probably wasn't going to happen. But man, on the other side of me, there were two things that voiced. I looked on the profile page and I saw that there was a paper trade reset available, and it said like reset your account anytime for free, do this. And I was like, oh shoot, I don't want to press that button right now, but it's good to know that button exists because I'm just going to hold this margin. Worst case, if I end up like, if the platform, if price goes against me and it nukes, I'll just quickly hit that reset button and short with the market. So then, like, I swear I had checked a couple hours before the price started nuking that it was still available. And I'm like, okay, like I'm fine. Actually, not even a couple hours. Like the nuke happened fast, like within an hour. And when it finally got there and it happened, I'm like, okay, again, it just doesn't make sense right now to close this out, considering it's based off realized P&L. If there's a bounce, there's a lot more upside to leave that and then reset. And then as soon as like the lick happened and I go to press the button, it was blacked out. And I should have known that. I should have clarified, like, to make sure that I knew that going into it. But that was a big part of what I thought. And at that point, it was just like, well, it is what it is. So,
well, they just announced that you do have a $2,500 buyback if you want. It's free, but everyone's getting one. And I'll play my cards there. I was like, no buybacks. Let's just let it go. But they decided everyone originally starts with 10K. So now you can get back in for 2,500 for free, but you get one 2,500 recap.
well, and that's kind of what I assumed whenever I saw the, like, you get a paper, whatever. So at that point, I'm like, okay, again, I've got infinite exposure to the upside right now by just holding this position. I may as well just hold the position. It's not a big deal. And, I'll get one rebuy apparently at like whatever the 10K is based on what I saw in the settings at the time. So it just was, anyway, is what it is. It's like, I got a little bit greedy with it because again, I knew at the end of that, especially because it was top 8 was the only thing that mattered. I should have just cashed out and been done with it. But there's just something that like gets in my system in these competitions where I've done 4 trading competitions recently. And at the beginning of 3 out of the 4, I've been well in the lead, both with paper and with USD. Like there was one on the, what's it called? Orderly had a competition and they gave 10K real USD and I turned it into 160K in 26 hours. That was insane.
Could you cash it out?
No, at that point, I'm like, I was in first place both for like they had a 50K KOL prize and they had a 50K overall prize. And I was in first place in each.
Wow.
And at that point, I'm like, yeah, like, why not just drive it home? And yeah.
Yeah.
So the issue that I have with these is I'm really good at starting off fast and hot, but I need to make it a team effort where, I've got a coach that subs out. They're like, Kaleo, you're out. We're going to stick person XYZ that can adjust their risk tolerance at a certain point of the game.
One of the guys we had on the show says he just starts thinking of his wife yelling at him, and when he thinks of his wife yelling at him, he cashes out because he's like, I don't want to piss her off. That's the real taskmaster.
Dude, that's why I just don't really trade much leverage stuff at all anymore. It took me a long time to really get to that point to learn it, where, that's how I got my followership at the beginning. I think in a trending market, I can outperform anybody. Just, I can play a trend very well. I'm not afraid to be able to push the chips on the table. And if the market is going that direction, that's how, in 2021, I had that run up where I turned 30K into 12.5 mil on FTX, just trading perps in less than it was about 2 weeks.
Wow.
But it was just from, trending markets, but it was the same story then, right? Too many chips on the table, easy come, easy go. So, it's one of those repeating stories. So I'll have fun with it with this type of stuff, but it's just.
My dad always says, never confuse a bull market for brains. And I'm not saying that about you, but as he's the same way. He's like, I'm a great bull market trader because at that point, in crypto, it's largely been about being in and, just being in and being willing to take risk. But then you get these 50% chops, and you got to make sure you're not in a position to kind of lose your whole bag. And when that happens. So for a guy like you who got in 2017, how much do these kind of big picture downturns hurt? I think and I asked from the place of there's still kind of the sentiment, long-term bag holders are good, even though we're all feeling a lot of pain right now. Would you say that's accurate, or do you think most long-term bag holders just double down, and eventually?
I still think the pain is real every time. As much as people want to say it's not, it is. But to double down on that, my conviction in the industry hasn't wavered. I think that I've been around it enough times that you hear the same story every single time there's a major catastrophic, at the beginning. Because one thing I've been wrong about so far, I really thought that we'd broken the traditional 4-year cycle. And in a sense we have, but in a bad way, because we just didn't get the traditional alt season where Bitcoin dominance really saw a nuke at the same time that prices were going up that we really traditionally see during a bull market. It just never happened. But in the same sense, as far as the cyclical price nature of Bitcoin, it's going down right on cue with where it would in another bull market. And, it's a bear market right now. It is clear and cut. And I have been dead wrong about that so far. So it hurts, but at the same time, I really think for the average person that's able to just grit through this and find a way to just continue to stack and build your voice, build whatever product that you see in here, there's a lot of opportunity through the noise that pops up in the years to follow.
Yeah. No, it is interesting. Right now, there's this kind of murmur of quantum risk as just kind of this existential 10-year risk. What's your thought on that? And some of the, is that something you kind of bucket in the noise that's always been there? Or do you think there's actually some there?
I think that there are various mitigations that have been developed over the years to be able to help address that. I think that it honestly probably is eventually an existential risk, at least, to Bitcoin for some of those legacy wallets that you have that have been idle for X amount of time and are not upgraded to the point to where they are quantum resistant. So you've got a certain percentage of the supply that people either have considered dead or, dormant. That all of a sudden has the ability to be awakened, at least with Bitcoin, Though, I mean, I think the industry as a whole is resilient and creative enough that like they're going to find a way to be able to push through that. You know, every single one of these major technical hurdles that have been presented over the years, people have continued to innovate with, right? Like it hasn't been one of those things where it's ever been a game stopper. There's always been innovation. And that's one of the reasons why I'm so bullish about being in the industry where we are now is there still is, it doesn't feel like it based on what we've seen with price action, but there's constant innovation that is happening within the industry.
Yeah. No, I think my issue with the quantum stuff is that I think one of the big selling points of Bitcoin is put it in a box, take your seed phrase, put it in a box, bury it under your yard, and then tell your kids to go get it in 30 years. And I think a lot, like at least with me, I haven't my Bitcoin's still long. I wouldn't even know how to get it right now. I'd have to go through so many steps just to get it, you know. And I think that kind of just like tuck it away and never think about it again is being challenged here. There's kind of like a whoops, never mind. You actually got to do these steps or it's gone, you know, and like in a quantum solution where people have to upgrade or whatnot. Like to me that, you know, I think it's something you can work through, but I don't think it will be pleasant. But we'll see. So you've done 4 trading tournaments recently. Like what have you learned about trading tournaments? Like what's the alpha, or do you think it really is just like go levered long, try to spot a trend and then see what happens?
I think each tournament it's slightly like, you know, the rules and are slightly different for tweaks, but I think that there are a couple things. It's like, you know, one, be better aware of the full rule book going into it than I was in this last one.
Yeah.
So know your situation as far as like if you have rebuys available, that changes the game as far as your risk tolerance in the initial, especially with that first stack, right? Like, you know, you can push harder on the first stack. And I think that there is some like real upside to doing that. You know, and like from the sounds of it with the AceTrader one, with the second round, it's going to be a much shorter period of time that you're going. So it's like, how long will the second round have as far as the live competitions?
I think that those are 30 minutes to an hour. Like those are like very much just like, I almost feel like coin flips, but we'll see.
So I think with that one, you've got to be very decisive. There are 2 things. It's like, I just watched, you can laugh at this. I've been watching Beast Games on Amazon Prime. And I think it's kind of interesting is, you know, say what you want about Mr. Beast and the spoof of Squid Games, whatever. But like, I think it's kind of interesting. And there was a challenge where on one of the recent episodes, it was pouring down rain and there was an obstacle course that you had to run on and not fall off of. If you're falling off of, you're immediately eliminated. But, you know, if somebody beats you to the other side, they win, right? So I kind of view it the same with like that next 30-minute to hour-long challenge. And like with anything here in general, square up your competition, number one. But 2, you're kind of at the point where you're like, okay, is it better to just not even leave the platform and let the other person make a mistake and trip themselves up? Like, you know, what I did on the second part of this first round or the second round, whatever you want to call it. So I think it'll be same time with that, because there could be advantage to just say, hey, let the person push early, see what they are going to do, and then see how hard you need to push in that last 30 minutes, right? Yeah. See if you find something. But it's also market condition dependent too. If there's like some magical support line that you're looking at and it taps that directly, you're like, okay, well, I've got the perfect, you know, risk resist, whatever trade, put your chips on the table and then make them in the uncomfortable position where they're like, oh, shoot. Now I've got to be a little bit more aggressive and maybe do something that would be outside of their comfort zone because you found that sweet spot. So,
yeah. I just took a screenshot of this chart though, because what I was thinking as you were saying that is like, this actually has been a very easy market for trending traders if you're willing to go short. I mean, like, truth be told, the anti-chop. It looks like a cliff dive.
What hurts. That's what hurts, because I like really where my lick was my invalidation of my long thesis in general, and I wanted to just hammer the short in that.
Yes. Yeah.
So I was like, this is perfect. Again, all the exposure to the upside. And if this happens, I'm going to hammer that short. And like I was on FOMO hour with Farouk and them yesterday.
All those guys.
And they asked me, dude, I was like, this sounds bad, but I'm bearish right now. And I hope that it's one of those things by saying this, the people are able to screenshot this conversation, do a clip of it and say, Kaleo got bull or bearish at the bottom. Like I pray that happens, but man, I don't know where the bottom is going to be right now. I just don't see I'm worried about a violent flush. Still.
It is very hard to be a chartist and really say any positive story about this chart right now. I mean, we're below. We just broke violently below like spring of 2024 levels. IBIT, the ETF is down more than 10% today.
Dude, like we broke beneath support on the log scale dating back to early 2020. If you look at Bitcoin versus the NASDAQ, we just broke a support on the log scale that dates back to like February of 2015.
No.
Wow. But I mean, to be fair, like that one, anyway, there.
I mean, log scale, Bitcoin, NASDAQ, relational chart, trend line. You got a lot of words in there. It's hard to.
Yeah, I know. So take it with a grain of salt. There's just a few things that you look at relatively that look at it like historically when you see this type of. I trace it back a few other times. It's a pretty violent flush, but most of the time the violent flush happens pretty quickly from what I'm looking at, and it resolves itself within a couple weeks. You find a bottom and you either range there for a bit and grind up, or in a few cases, it's V'd back up. And I obviously prefer, number 2 to number 1.
Yeah. Yeah. So
what are you thinking?
I just feel like the thesis, and I think the thesis was that with President Trump elected, the U.S. was going to buy Bitcoin, and the rest of the world would follow suit. The states would follow suit, and it would just be like, hide your Bitcoin. There are too many buyers. Like they're coming for you. I feel like that was my thesis after the election. Just the way he was talking about it, and the way the people he was getting on board, and the decision. Like Lutnick's a huge Bitcoin guy. You had like Cynthia Loomer. You had all these people running these kind of committees that I thought were just going to create a whole new wave of government institutional buying. And that thesis is entirely broken, So, and then I think on top of that, you got the DATs and you got all this huge transfer of supply from normal holders to arbitrageurs who have actually no interest in holding Bitcoin, who now own a lot of supply. And then, at 92,000, you had one of the most prevalent, kind of well-respected Wall Street guys say that he was moving his allocation to 0 because of quantum risk. So I'm just sitting here and saying, okay, how do we get to where we are? How does that reverse though? Like, yeah, I mean, I think you've seen more cycles than I have. I don't know what takes despondency to FOMO. Like what creates that V shape?
Let me ask you a question. I don't know if you're a religious guy or not, but would you consider Trump a Christian? Like he says he's a Christian.
Yeah, I mean that question's outside my pay grade, I'd say.
Here's the one thing I'll say. Like, I'm a very religious person. Like my faith is a huge part of my identity. Yeah. I don't buy a single word that Trump says outside of the fact that he's trying to buy himself votes by aligning with it because it's the predominant faith in America. I do not believe that he actually believes what he never does. And, like that's at the end of the day for God to judge. It's not me, but I kind of see the same type thing with Bitcoin. Like he says he is a huge crypto guy and that he wants America to be the crypto capital of the world. But if you look at just 4, 5, 6 years ago, his last term in office, he was against it. He thought that Bitcoin was a threat to the power, the strength of the US dollar. And I view his alignment with crypto more in line of not wanting and not believing that Bitcoin's going to be great. It's kind of sad to say. Like, I'm a conservative also. I'm not a Trump guy, like, but I'm a conservative.
Yeah.
And I think that he kind of lines up with that more so from the sake that it's like, oh, how much money can I make for my next meme or whatever? Like that. It just is a little bit more of a corrupt feeling than it is really the true sense of somebody that aligns with the industry.
I do think that when he launched the Trump coin, and then Trump coin, there was still hope that like, okay, maybe there's some there. And then when Melania came out, it was just like, oh shit, like this whole thing's like a joke. And I think like that made people feel like maybe the alignment here is actually much more, much more for aesthetics than it is for anything real. And I think a lot of people sensed that long ago, but that was kind of it'll be interesting to see where it goes. I think the other thing that's an issue though is that most taxpayers actually don't love Bitcoin. I think our industry loves it, but when you start using taxpayer money to support the Bitcoin industry, that actually gets considered corrupt, and it creates a lot more noise with people we don't see on Twitter that also are in his ear. So I don't think it's as easy as like him just using taxpayer money to buy Bitcoin. Like I think like that stuff is harder, and I think the idea that the rest of the world will do whatever the US wants is not true, because I don't think we're very popular outside the US right now. And I think there was kind of a sense that we would build popularity with time, but I feel like the opposite is happening.
Mm-hmm.
But who knows? It's a lot of politics, a lot of international stuff, a lot of reading Trump's mind, which is a very difficult thing to do.
We can just hope that Walsh maybe helps create the bottom whenever he steps in for Powell.
We'll see what happens.
Talking about like bullish potential events, major events on the horizon. I think that could be one, is a shift in policy from the Fed.
Yeah. No, I think that we've been hoping for that for a while. So that'll be interesting to see. So I want to go back to one thing, and then I'll let you go, and I'll let our listeners go as well. 30,000 to 12.5 million. You said that earlier, and that stuck with me. Was that like your big moment? I feel like a lot of people on X have that moment where suddenly people were like, "Oh shit, this person's real." Was that your moment?
Actually, kind of the crazy part was my moment really started in the summer of 2020, but I just didn't have much capital at that time to really push the chips on the table. So I just, and it was a bull market across the board. I started really hot with options stuff where, there were the people that followed me, like, heck, my little brother at that time had more capital than I did. I was in the oil and gas industry, and I had just lost my job because oil just hit negative. So I was an engineer in that. And, I was just looking for ways at that time to be able to like, find some type of income, let alone try to be able to invest it. But yeah, so things kind of started trending that way, where it was just, like rode the Neo trade, like really pushed hard on that to the point where it blew up, like a bunch of these different things. And then in early 2021, again, I had insane engagement. I was a small account with insane engagement. And it just, again, started to like trend in a certain direction where, okay, now there were certain forms, like streams of income. Like I had some affiliate income that was coming in, that it's like, okay, now I've got a few chips that I can put on the table. Slowly started to build those chips on the table. And it really just culminated where I had already hit, I feel like 150 plus thousand followers. By the time that had happened, my account had already been trending. I had made those connections, but that was the ultimate peak where it was like, holy crap. Like, that's where I'd say, man, like there was a certain point where I'd post about, like, heck, I did a post about TRX one time, and TRX was like number 10 or 11 on the market cap, or no, 15, right? Anyway, like $10 billion plus, it went up 10% off a post during that point. Like it was just, but the issue would be, I would feel some guilt if like I was in a position and I'm like, okay, people just bought this to be able to like sell I was very confused on what was organic versus what was not. And I refused to exit a position too early on something like that, where again, I was like, okay, I'm not going to be the guy that immediately sells into this pump. I'm going to hold it. Like I can handle a little dip on, whatever volatility. And eventually the market shifted the other direction. And from having that mentality of like, okay, I shared this trade, I did it. I can't like immediately cut it, even if it goes beneath where I believe it should be. I've got to hold it. And the mental gymnastics of it all kind of led toward a little bit of the initial retrace.
Well, I mean, I say I'm not as religious as you. I mean, but I'm a little religious. But above that, I just like don't want to be a bad person. Like I have my own ethical code, right? So if I would ever say something positive about something, it would go up. I couldn't sell. I've worked for meme land for 2.5 years. I haven't sold a single token, even though most of my pay is in meme coin. Like that's just not. So you end up in these weird situations as someone who people respect, and you want to share your ideas, but like once you start moving the market, at least for me, that's like never a place I actually want to be. I kind of stopped even doing it at some point because I was like, I don't want to make the frenemies, the friends, or the enemies that come with this. But everyone kind of has different standards and stuff, but definitely an issue sometimes.
Yeah, but it was during that point where it was godlike engagement. Heck, yeah, like I remember to put it in perspective, there was one day I shared a post about like go follow Kobe, and Kobe jumped up 8,000 followers in a day. Like, I had a buddy, I should have made my YouTube account back then. I had a buddy that made his YouTube account, asked me to shout it out. He went from 1,500 subs that he got by himself to 17,000 subs by the end of the day.
Damn, that is real.
Like,
that is real.
It was insane, man. So, they're like, it's a lot healthier on the mind not being in that position.
Well, it is nice though when you can help a friend, right? Like it's not like you're doing you're getting someone 17,000 YouTube followers. Like that's like the good kind of power that comes with building. People respect you. But anyways, I'm actually gonna do a podcast next. It's gonna be called Zero to Hero, and I'm gonna talk about people who started with nothing and built social media presence, built financial stability, all that stuff from nothing. Because I think so many people. Most of my followers have less than $50,000 to their name and are kind of in that game. I want to talk to people who found ways and then the blow ups. So I'd love to talk to you when we get that going.
Yeah.
In the meantime, $2,500 on AceTrader.
Hey, is it back? Is it on the table? Or like
it's there? They told me. The product team just pinged me. They said, "Hey, where everyone gets 2,500, make sure that Kaleo and Keyboard Monkey know." So you've been officially told here. I'm curious to see what you're going to do.
Well, shoot, I wish I would have known this morning. Okay. All right, man. We'll see what happens with that. Odds are right now it may be too late, but we'll see. We'll see. It's a lot of volatility. If I just got to get the right entry one time. Right entry one time.
You got 40 leverage on your side, so let's see what can happen. All right, brother. Thank you very much for coming on.
All right. It was fun, man. Thanks for having me.
All right. Take care.